Welcome to the Sourcing Hero podcast, produced by Una, a group purchasing organization that empowers sourcing heroes, and Art of Procurement, the world's largest procurement podcast network. I'm your host, Kelly Barner. The goal of the Sourcing Hero podcast is to capture the epic stories of people who are rising up and beating the odds to create exceptional value within procurement, directly from those heroes themselves. Today, my guest here on the Sourcing Hero podcast is Michael Rodenberg. Michael is a member engagement specialist with Una, the group purchasing organization that provides the Sourcing Hero with its home. Now, Michael serves as a connection point between members and suppliers, and he helps organizations tap into contracts across different categories like food, shipping, and office supplies. So, Michael, thank you for joining me here on the Sourcing Hero podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Now, I talked a little bit in my intro about what you do now and where you focus within the Una team. But before we get more into that, let's know a little bit more about your background. What do you find that it might be interesting for people to know about your career journey or professional roles you've held in the past?
I would say that it's been just kind of a winding road. A lot of different companies trying to figure out, what career I wanted, what company I wanted. But I take a little bit from all of those, and it's really helped give me a lot of experience and perspective that I really take into work every day. I've done everything from working at a county jail when I was in college to working in the ticketing industry, accounting industry, and
Interesting.
everything in between.
Well, procurement is a good place for you to land because we all have windy careers. This isn't like accounting where people kind of follow a straight line or finance or even sales. So you've got a lot in common with the rest of the procurement community in that. I know you came to Una, you mentioned the ticketing world. I'd be interested to know how that experience maybe shaped the way that you currently think about pricing and value. And then, of course, everything that you do today being part of the team at a group purchasing organization.
Yeah, I would say the two biggest lessons that being in the ticketing world taught me working at Tickets for Less was the value of controlling what you can control as far as cost. There were
Yep.
so much volatility in things with ticketing industry, especially it was the markets, a football game might have two really good teams and then all of a sudden one of them gets really bad and suddenly the ticket prices drop 50%. That's not something you can control. So it really showed me to really value what costs you can control,
Mm.
and also just getting an appreciation for the narrow margins that so many companies have to deal with. The ticketing industry is one that has very narrow margins. It's razor thin. You're trying to squeeze every last bit you can out of it. So both those things have definitely helped me understand what we do is important, helping members save money where they can, control costs where they can.
Oh, absolutely. And I know based on some of the industries that Una member companies are in, I know there's food service. That's a
Mhm.
very thin margin business. Retail is a very thin margin business. My procurement background's in grocery retail, so sort of a little bit of both of those two things.
Yep.
I can't even tell you how jealous I am every time I talk to somebody that learned procurement in like pharmaceuticals or automotive. And I mean, there's challenges everywhere, don't get me wrong. But when you're counting pennies, right, and that's the
Right.
strategic advantage, it does raise the level of the challenge that's involved.
Definitely. Definitely.
Now, I know from talking to you and some of the other members of the UNA team that you're all often having conversations with people, whether they're in procurement or not, that maybe haven't worked with a GPO in the past. And so there's probably a little bit of an educational process that ends up going into that conversation. What's your way of describing how a GPO can fit into a company's processes and systems when you're either talking to a prospect or you're talking to a new Una member for the first time?
I like to say it as we help you get leverage. We by combining the buying power of a GPO and getting all of that spending power, it helps you to get discounts that you wouldn't be able to get on your own. And that's where it really benefits. Use bringing together people to really get discounts that you wouldn't be able to get on your own. So I like to say that we're leverage. Like you can try and negotiate things and bigger companies can do that, but for if
Yeah.
you're just a small, 10 people or less, and you try and negotiate a deal with a supplier, they're just going to laugh at you most of the time. Be like, this is the price. Like, here's what it is.
Yeah, take
So
it or leave it.
that's where GPOs can really help, like harnessing thousands upon thousands of members, spending millions and tens of millions of dollars in any given supplier to really help you get the best discounts.
Yeah. Now, when you think about your day to day and being in that sort of connector role between members and suppliers, what does that look like on a daily basis?
So for me, I do a lot of stuff on the back end. So once a member talks to our sales team, my role from there is to get them connected. We call that rostering, getting
Okay.
them added, getting their member ID and all that stuff. And then from there, once they're ready to connect to a supplier, that's where I step in as well. So my role is to really kind of be that connection point between the sales team, the members, and the suppliers. I spend a lot of my day either getting stuff rostered, submitting requests to get them connected to a supplier. I also weekly and even daily am talking to members, answering their questions. If, say they're shipping something with FedEx, they're like, the discounts didn't seem to come in right. Well, okay, great.
Okay.
Send me your invoices. I'll take a look at it. Or, calling a supplier and saying, what does this mean? Like, how can I learn more about this? So kind of constant communication of like members acting as like a support, getting
Yeah.
them rostered, and then also building relationships with our supplier partners as well.
Now, one of the things that's interesting, and I know this often comes with the GPO model, but that Una is very specifically focused on being no additional cost to the member.
Mm.
I'm sure this is something that, especially if you're talking to procurement, you're regularly explaining, like, there's not a trick, it isn't a trap. I absolutely promise. But given all of the support you just described that you're providing to these members and all the facilitation and go between with suppliers, how do you end up explaining this idea of no cost while you're also offering all these services in a way that both sort of gives due credit to the work that you do, but also make sure people aren't concerned that they're somehow paying for that in like a secret backdoor way?
Yeah, it's a question we get all the time. What's the catch? Why why aren't we getting charged for your membership? Why is it no cost? And the simplest answer is it's our relationships with the suppliers. They pay us on the back end, and the goal of everything is to create a win-win scenario for everyone. So for
Yeah.
the members, we get you connected to discounts to help you save money. For the suppliers, like we help bring them new business that maybe given, if they have limited sales resources, they may not be able to bring in some of these people, but we can because we're already reaching out to them for other things. And then obviously we get our admin fee on the back end from the suppliers themselves. So it's something we have to explain almost every day. So it's
Yeah.
something I've gotten very used to doing because yeah, when you hear it, you're like, well, that makes no sense. You're saving me money and I don't have to pay you anything for it. Like, what is that? So yeah,
Yeah.
we have to explain it. Like it's really the suppliers because it benefits them too as we bring them new business.
Now, one of the other things that I know is a regular part of whether it's the onboarding process or whether it's trying to win over a prospect to become a member, is that sometimes companies will send you their current invoices so that you can compare them against what their pricing would look like as part of the Una GPO. Are there any interesting patterns you tend to see or observations that you come up with that you frequently get to then go back to that company and say, hey, look at what I found in looking at your data?
Yeah, people would be surprised how much certain spend can be condensed. You know, I like to use like Office Depot as an example. You think Office Depot, you think office supplies, but it's not just that. They have furniture, office
Yeah.
furniture, IT services. And so that's something like when people have their invoices or a spend cube, an AP file, whatever they have, they may have it split by category. And it's like we can show them like, hey, this category and this category, they can be combined and save money on both and only have to work with one supplier, one rep. So it's not only saving you money, but it's also simplifying things as well.
Yeah.
And we see that a lot. Like people just, and a lot of times too, people are afraid to give us all their information. They want to just send us one or two invoices. And so it's
Yeah.
about building that trust too. Like we can save you money. Like there's no catch. We're not trying to take anything from you. Like this is us trying to show you all the ways that we can help you save money.
Yeah. I'm going to date myself here, Michael. I worked in at a software provider, basically, like you talked about, spend cubes. Way back in the day, when companies would FedEx their spend data on like a CD-ROM, I know this is
Wow.
so bad. I know they would like open the window and the carrier pigeon would fly up to the ledge and they would tie the little CD to the carrier. Well, that part I'm kidding about. But they would FedEx this disk with all their data, and I think it's interesting because back then there was like a need for trust and an intensity around where's the disc? Where's the disc? Someone needed to place a phone call as soon as we had that disc in hand, even if it was sent in a trackable shipping way. But I think even though we've stopped using the physical transfer of that data, I think that anxiety around sharing invoices and data is still there because you feel like I'm officially airing the details of what's going on internally. And even if there's an opportunity, I definitely think it makes people nervous. So it must be rewarding if they get themselves through that process. And then you're able to come back and say, guess what? I have good news for you based on what you've shared. Maybe that makes things a little bit more positive.
Yes, that definitely helps. And we have ways to help kind of alleviate some of the anxiety with mutual NDAs and things like that. But
Yep.
we find a lot of members come to us for one specific item that they're trying to save money on. And so
Okay.
sometimes the best course is just, hey, let's help them with this, build that trust. And then from there, we can be like, hey, now that we've helped you save money on this, you've seen how the process works. Let's talk about other ways we can help you save money.
Absolutely. Now, I'm sure that these member side companies that you work with, I mean, we know they're different by industry, but I'm sure they're also different in terms of their overall size. Do you find that the needs and expectations of smaller versus mid-sized companies are different? And is there a way that you and your team change your approach so that you're meeting the needs of both?
Yes, they're very different. And we have companies that range from literally one person to tens of thousands of employees, and the approaches are very different. I would say for smaller companies, first off, obviously you're a lot more involved. I don't want to say
Mm,
handling, that makes it sound like they don't know what they're doing. That's not what I mean, but you're definitely more a partner going with them step by step. Because
absolutely.
if it's just a one person business, they know how to run their business. They don't know the ins and outs of procurement. Like
Yeah.
that's not what they're trying to focus on. So being that partner to help them kind of walk through that world and figure out ways to help them grow their business. When you deal with larger companies, you're still involved a lot, but everything is more complicated. You know, you're dealing with procurement teams, you're
Yep.
dealing with legal, like especially as it gets to like really large companies, there's back and forth with us and the member, with the suppliers and the member. Like we get try and get reps involved, and it's just a much longer process with larger companies because of the money involved.
Yeah. Now, we talked about this idea that people have to get past the idea that, no, it's really okay. You don't have to pay for this. That's part of the supplier arrangement. Are there any other common misconceptions, or maybe it's questions that people ask that you find come up time and time again with different companies as they're going through the process of evaluating the GPO approach?
I would say a lot of them deal with comfort problems. So they get used to working with a specific rep for their supplier. So
Wow.
even if we're going from one company to another, or even within the same company, they're like, well, I've really gotten used to working with this person. Am I going to have to move? And a lot of times the answer is no.
Okay.
Most of the time, these suppliers, the reps are the same. It's just about getting you switched to a different program. And so that's something we deal with a lot. And especially when it's changing companies, that is something
Okay.
that can take a little bit of convincing to make that leap because you've gotten used to how things work. And so, especially say it's, maybe it's not 30% savings, maybe it's 10. All of a sudden they're weighing in their mind, is it worth that 10% to change up how we're doing it with this part of our business? And so that's something we have to go through a lot of back and forth of and really kind of reassure them like, you know, do we need to get a rep involved with the new company and kind of get you introduced, get you comfortable? Like that's probably the biggest thing is getting them out of their comfort zone with certain suppliers because they've just done it that way and they're afraid to like mess things up just for a little bit of savings.
Yeah. I actually think that's a really interesting point because it's something procurement's often dealing with.
Mhm.
And it's probably interesting because maybe people assume that when you're working with a GPO, it becomes only about savings, but obviously there's a lot more to it. So it sounds like then you're regularly having conversations where they're saying, okay, we understand the savings opportunity, but we also need to think about service levels or experience or even sometimes operations get messy and you have to know that a supplier is going to be able to accommodate that. But it sounds like there are opportunities. It's not just that the benefit is about savings. A lot of these other very common operational challenges can be worked through as well.
Absolutely. We have good relationships with a lot of our suppliers, not only at the top level for their GPO services, but even when possible, we try to get to know the individual reps too, because that makes such a difference. Like, if you're having a problem, we can just reach out directly to the rep and be like, hey,
Yeah.
let's work this out. And that's part of what we try to do to set ourselves apart as well. It's not just helping you save money, getting you connected, but also being there to help you work through any problems with the program as well.
Yeah. Now, you had mentioned before that a lot of times companies will approach Una because they have one specific category where they're thinking maybe a GPO would work for me here. For somebody who maybe isn't there, who has never worked with a GPO before, are there like signs and symptoms where if you're experiencing any of the following, you might want to look at a GPO to potentially help you with some set of those challenges? What are some of those signs that maybe, whether it's spending patterns or what would be the challenges that might trigger a light for somebody that, like, hey, maybe I should go talk to a GPO?
I would say as there's not specific signs or symptoms. It's just as you grow and as you spend more, you should always be looking at it.
Mm,
There's always ways to like check what you're spending versus what you could get with a GPO program, for example. Like, never be afraid to ask that. Like, what can I save here? What if with my spend, what would the cost be for me if I join your GPO? For us, like, we're always happy to run an analysis if you give us the invoices to show you like, hey, we can save you money. Hey, maybe not. Maybe you're actually on a really good program, but you
yeah.
just never know until you ask. So I would say never be afraid to ask that. Like, always come to us. You know, we're happy to help you look at it, analyze anything, because you just never know until you check it.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it's a win-win either way. You either get external validation that you're doing a really good job and getting great pricing, or you get sort of a step forward on an opportunity to do even better.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Michael, before we wrap, I want to bring you in on a tradition we have here at the Sourcing Hero podcast. So I'm going to give you two questions. You can pick either one to answer, and I promise that your answer will not be wrong. So your choices are: what does the idea of a sourcing hero mean to you? Or what do you think heroism looks like in a business context?
I think I'll go with the first one, the sourcing hero. And
Okay.
honestly, I'll go back to my previous answer. Being able to help the member save money, even if it's not with us. Like, yes, we'd obviously love for you to be on our program working with us, but we're here to help our members. And that's for me what being a sourcing hero is. If even if you can't save money with us on our program, if we can help you either validate that you're already saving enough money or help you find another way to do it, then we're happy to do that.
Awesome. Well, Michael, if people are either learning about GPOs, discovering Una, or meeting you for the first time through this conversation, what would you suggest they do in terms of next steps if they want to either connect with you or maybe learn more about GPOs?
Yeah, I'm happy to have them reach out to me. You can find me at michael@una.com. I'm on LinkedIn as well. You can also reach out to our info email, info@una.com. Any of those sources will get you to us, and we'll be happy to get you started.
Awesome. Well, Michael, thank you so much for being here, sharing your experiences and the things that you've seen and heard working with members and suppliers. I appreciate you joining me.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Sourcing Hero podcast. Join us again next time for more true stories of sourcing and business heroism performed by your colleagues and peers. Look for the Sourcing Hero wherever you get your podcasts, and don't forget to subscribe. Finally, don't forget, sourcing heroism is taking place all around us every day. Keep your eyes open and you're bound to see it. Until next time, I'm your host, Kelly Barner. Stay well and always remember that you can be a hero too.